All right, so today we're going to talk about Nehemiah Perek Yud. So it looks like it's a very long parak, but you'll see we're going to skip a whole bunch in the middle there. So this is sort of like, I would say, almost like the climax of the Sefer itself. And it's really involves sort of the rededication that Bnei Israel make to its commitment to Torah. And so what we're going to look at is a shvuah, an oath that they take, who takes the oath, and what's the content of it. And I think one of the things that's a good question about this parak is it just a rededication to particular laws as they appear in the Torah? And we'll see that they're not exactly appearing the way they are in the Torah. Or is this almost sort of like a pre-rabbinic type of way of sort of going forward, right? Where you sort of have the rabbis who give, who sort of bring the people along with particular types of laws. So those are some of the things that I want us to look at today. Okay, so let's begin. ובכל זאת אנחנו כורתים אמנה וכותבים ועל החתום שרינו לוויינו כהנינו. So they decide, right, that they're going to make a pledge and put it in writing and make a sealed copy with the officials, the Levim, and the priests. ועל החתומים נחמיה הטרישתה ben Chalkia v'Tzidkiah. So, and these were the people who signed it. So the next psukim, all the way from Bet, and we'll skip around a little bit, okay, until Kavchet are all the people who signed it. Now,
it's like the people who signed the Bill of Rights,
something like that. Who signed this, this Anachnu Kortim, right, Amanah. So they make this, Korate is like a brit, right? Like we say to, make a brit, but Amanah is like a pledge, and that they wrote, okay? So these are the people who signed it, okay? It's first they have that first set of people, then in Perek Yud they have the Levium who signed it, okay? Then in Tet Vav it is the Rashi Ha'am, okay? One person who is missing from this list is Ezra. So that again speaks to sort of that tension that's always within Sefer Nehemiah, which is, did Ezra and Nehemiah live at the same time, or did these happen totally separately? So if you want to say that they live separately, obviously you can, because it would seem odd. Why would Ezra not have signed this letter, right? The other way to explain it is that, remember, Ezra was sort of like the Sofer. He was the Moshe Rabbeinu. So it's not that you would have Moshe Rabbeinu, right? You wouldn't have the leader take the pledge and sign it, right? The idea is that it's the people recommitting themselves to this, and they would be the ones to sort of take the oath. So that's the other explanation to explain why it is that we don't see Ezra's name on here. So that's the first half of the parak, right? It's just telling us that they took an oath, and these were the people who signed it. Okay, we'll continue on with parak Chavtet. Pasuk Chavtet. Ushara am hakohanim halaviyim hashoraim hamishorim hanitinim v'chol hanibdal me'amei haratzot el torata Elokim nishehem b'nehem uvenotehem kol yodea mevim. Okay, so the rest of the people, the priests, the Levium, the gatekeepers, the singers, the temple servants, and everybody who separated themselves from the people of the lands to the teaching of gods, their wives, their sons and daughters, and all who know enough to understand. So this language of who comprises the people, so we've seen this list before in Sefer Ezra, right? But I want you to just look at, if you can open up quickly, if you have a Tanakh in front of you, to Esther. Okay, Perek Chet, Pasuk Yud Zayin. Because I think the one question here is, what is this question of the people, the group, the category of the people who separated themselves from the other nations?
Esther,
and if you
which
look,
one, Esther?
Yeah.
Esther, what
Perek
parak?
Pasuk Yud Zayin. So if you look there, the pasuk reads as follows: Uchol Medina, uvechol Medina, Medina, uvechol ir va'ir, mekom asher davar hamelch v'dato, magia simcha v'sason leYehudim, mishta v'yom tov, v'rabim me'amei ha'aretz mityahadim, ki nafal pachad haYehudim aleihem. Right? So they declare this festival that the Jews do, and then it says, v'rabim me'amei ha'aretz mityahadim, and many people of the land decided that they what? that they were going to be Jewish. So I think going back to our original pasuk here, because remember, there's a lot of parallels in terms of the language between Nehemiah, Esther, and Ezra. And also we're talking about sort of that it's the same time period, basically. Okay, so if we go back to that pasuk there in Chavtet, right? V'chol hanibdal me'amei haratzot el Torah Elokim, that could have also been a category of converts, right? You know, people who decided that they had great affection for the Jewish people. What I think is also interesting here is to see is that there's sort of two themes then, therefore, in this Sefer. And we'll see this more as we look through what the actual oath is of what they rededicated themselves to. In Ezra and Nehemiah, we see that there were a lot of laws that were not being kept. So as much as there was like a group of Jewish people, we wouldn't say it was a particularly observant or educated group of Jewish people, right? Like they didn't know how to do many of the holidays. There was a lot of intermarriage. But yet at the same time, we see the longing to the Jewish people may still have had an appeal to, you know, groups of non-Jews. So I think that's like an interesting thing to note, that on the one hand, we have a group of very uneducated Jews, and yet at the same, who's really, you know, they hadn't heard of Torah before, right? Like when we saw in Perikhet, when they read the Torah together. And yet at the same time, we see from this pasuk that there may have been a group from Amei Haaretz, or Amei Haaretzot, who actually wanted to convert and join the Jewish people. Okay, pasuk lamed. Machzikim alachechem adireim ubaim ba'ala ubishfuah lalecha b'torat ha'elokim asher nitna biyad Moshe eved ha'elokim v'lishmor v'lasot kol mitzvot Hashem Adonenu u'mishpatav v'chukav. So they joined with their brothers and they took an oath, right? Notice the language of shvuah, to follow the teachings of God given through Moshe. So we know, we've talked about how Ezra, there's many parallels between Ezra and Moshe Rabbeinu, but I think again, what it's trying to go back, and also that the first reading of the Torah that they did with Nehemiah was in a way recreating Matan Torah. And again, I think it's interesting here, it's explicit to make that connection to the link that what's going on now is connected to the actual giving of the Torah with Moshe Rabbeinu. And that what was the commitment here? La'asot lishmor v'la'asot kol mitzvot Hashem Adonenu mishpatav v'chukav. To now fulfill all the commandments that Hashem gave. Okay? V'ha'amidu alenu mitzvot latet alenu. All right, so now we're going to look at what the actual, sorry, I skipped ahead here. Now we're going to look at what the actual mitzvot were that they committed themselves to. Okay? So here are they. And one of the things I want you to think about is the mitzvah as it appears in the Torah itself, or is there any variation to it? Okay, so the first one, yeah, sure.
I don't know if this is clear in the text, but do you think that, because it isn't such a theme when we study Jewish history, but these people who were, I mean, there's the intermarriage, and then on the other side, there are these people who are attracted. Do you think that there was any missionizing? Do you think that there was any outreach to?
Yeah, I don't know. I hear the question. I don't know. It's unclear, you know, because it's clear that there was a lot of intermarriage, but it doesn't look like that had a lot of content. And then you're right. And then at the same time, you're seeing that there's a group of non-Jews who are very attracted to this and would like to join Judaism. I don't think it's clear in the text what exactly happened. I think it's a good observation.
There isn't much conversation about that. I think generally we don't, I mean, we consider ourselves a people who have not missionized, but
right.
Throughout.
And that's what's also interesting is that here it's sort of, they let them in. And that's why I wanted to show that pasuk from Esther, because it seems like at that period of time, that sort of was allowed. You know, that was like a pasuk I hadn't really paid attention to in Esther, but it's very clear from the end of Pasuk Chet that there was a group of Persians who saw what were happening and decided to be mityahadim, to profess that they were somehow, you know, Jewish.
Yeah, I just wonder if it was a passive kind of thing, which doesn't really seem to be the case. I don't know.
But this is very active because it's a recommitment. So, okay, let's see what they recommitted themselves to. So Pasuk Lamed Aleph, V'asher lo nitain benotenu la'amei ha'aretz. So notice it's the same language. Ve'et benotehem lo nikach lebanenu. So the first is a prohibition against intermarriage. We will not give our daughters in marriage to the people of the land, nor will they take their daughters for our sons. Now, where the prohibition appears in Devarim, what's the actual prohibition about intermarriage? It's actually only against the Shivat Amim. And we saw that with Ezra also, that it seems they extend it sort of like to all non-Jews, okay? But they don't specify the 7 nations here. It just seems to be an Amei Ha'aratzot, right? That just non-Jews should not, we will no longer marry with them. Okay, the next one.
Well, at that time, was there an integration? Yardaena?
Yeah.
Yardaena? At that time, was there an integration of the nations that they couldn't specify at that point, which were the 7 nations? We couldn't specify today,
but if you read the Pasuk in Devarim, I can't remember where it is, it's very clear. It's the Shivat Amim of Eretz Canaan. So you're right. That's one way to say is that those were just the nations at that time, and now you're just dealing with the nations who are at this time. I agree with you, but it's just interesting that it's not the exact same language. That's all I'm trying to point out. And I think that's, again, that's the question here. Is this a rededication to law that was given in the Torah, or do we see some type of expansion, right? Because I think one of the ideas we've been trying to develop is the period of Ezra and Nehemiah, which is the end of prophecy and the beginning of like Ezra HaSofer, is this sort of the beginning of like a rabbinic type of Judaism, right? Where sort of the rabbi or the leader comes in and sort of makes like an expansion on like what the law was as it was actually given, verbatim in the Torah itself. Okay, next one, which is a very interesting one. ועמי הארץ המביאים את המקחות וכל שבר ביום השבת למכור לא ניקח מהם בשבת וביום קודש וניטוש את השנה, השביעית ומסע כל יד. So the people of the land who bring their wares and all sorts of food stuff for sale on the Sabbath day, we will not buy from them. So this is very interesting because if you look at the Torah itself, right, what does it say that you're not allowed to do on Shabbat?
Collect them on. That's one thing.
No, but when it talks about like the actual Shabbat itself, like Sheshet Yamim, so what's the one law that it has there? So it just has a general prohibition against work, right? And remember, the rabbinic understanding of that is it's the Lamatet Malachot that were done in the Mishkan, okay? And what's the only one that's actually mentioned? Is fire, right? Is starting a fire. That's the only one. So, but there actually isn't a prohibition that's direct about like, you won't do business on that day. So it's interesting that the understanding of a recommitment to Shabbat has to do with sort of commerce, right? That you would not participate in commerce on Shabbat. And then the second half of the pasuk says, what else? V'nitash et shana shvid umasa kol yad. That on the 7th year, right, on Shemitah year, what will they do?
They're going to give a shekel.
What?
They're going to give a shekel.
No. What does it say? They will forgive all outstanding debts. We don't talk about the not working of the land, but that they'll forgive all outstanding debts. Now, the other thing that's interesting about the Shemitah thing is that the traditional understanding of Shemitah is that it only applies when the majority of Jews live in Israel. That's why when the state of Israel was established, or when Jews started going back to Israel, it was a whole thing. Did you need to keep Shemitah at all? And many rabbis felt that it actually was rabbinic that you had to keep Shemitah at all, because the majority of Jews do not live there. That actually is really within our generation going to tip, and most Jews will actually end up living in Israel. But here we know that it was very clear during the Shivat Zion that there were plenty of Jews who did not live in Israel, and it's not clear that the majority of Jews lived there. So again, it's a question of, is this an expansion of what was presented in the Torah and, sort of like an innovation, or is it still just a recommitment to what was? Okay, next one. V'hemdu aleinu mitzvot latet aleinu shlishit hashekel bashana la'avodat beit Elokeinu. So they also agreed that they would give every year what? A third of a shekel. Now it's very interesting. What in the Torah was it that you actually had to give?
You had to give a shekel.
Yeah, but how much was it? How much shekel?
Chatzi shekel. Wasn't it chatzi shekel?
Chatzi shekel. It's machatzi hashekel. So it's interesting that here it's a third. So some of the commentators explain that maybe the measurement of the shekel changed. So a third of a shekel in that day was what a half a shekel looked like in that day.
Inflation,
but again, I just want you to notice that there's like these subtle
called inflation.
Right, inflation, exactly. But what I want, again, just to emphasize the point that there are subtle differences to what the recommitment is than to how it was actually given over by Moshe. Okay, next one. L'lechem ha'ma'arechad u'minchat ha'tamid u'le'olat ha'tamid ha'shabbatot ha'chadshim l'moadim v'la'kodshim v'la'chatot l'chaper al kol Yisrael v'chol melechet Beit Yisrael. So now they're talking about all of the things that were given in the Beit HaMikdash, the bread, the tamid, the regular burnt offerings, okay? The korbanot for the Shabbat, for Rosh Chodesh, for the festivals, and anything that was done to atone, right? Continue the next pasuk. V'hagorelot tiplenu al korban ha'itzim, ha'kohanim ha'leviyim ba'am la'avi lebeit Elokeinu lebeit avotenu li'itim mizumanim shana b'shana. So they casted lots amongst the priests, the Levim, and the people that they would provide for these things. The what? What are they saying they'll provide? In this
Korbanot.
what? Not the korbanot. What are they providing? Ha'etzim, that they will now give a regular donation of wood. Okay? Leva'er ala mizbeach Hashem Elokeinu kakatuv b'Torah. So this is also interesting. There's no mention of this in the Torah itself, right? We know that you had to give truma, you gave maser, there was machatzira shekel, but there's no mention of where the wood comes from. And it's interesting that the one sort of dedication that they're giving to the temple, besides the third of the shekel, is that there's now going to be a regular donation of wood, and it would be by the lottery system, right? And notice it would be muzamim shana b'shana, set times during the year that it would be given. So this seems to be something that's new. And then the last one is ulahavi et bikurei admatenu ubikurei kol pri kol eight shana b'shana leveit Hashem. Okay, and that the bikurim were going to be given. Okay, sorry, this is the second to last one. What's different here than the bikurim of the Torah?
It's
Isn't it
Shana
Kofri?
b'Shana.
No, we give bikurim.
No, every year you
What
have to give.
what fruits do we give bikurim from?
I was just saying it's kofri. We don't give kofri. This is
Right. What is it? And according to the Torah,
Sheva
it's just the Shivat Minim, exactly.
Minim,
And here
okay.
it seems to be kol pri, so that's interesting. And then the
We're
last
going on the
is-
few things that I remember. That's amazing.
Yes. No, but you're right. Ve'ed b'chorot beinenu ube'emtenu kakatu b'Torah, ve'ed b'chorei b'karenu v'tzo'enu lahavi lebeit Elokeinu lakohanim hamishartim b'beit Elokeinu. Right, so the rededication of giving the
B'chor.
firstborns of our sons, right? That's how we do, right? Pidyon haben, and of the animals. Okay, that they're going to give those to the Kohanim. The et reshit arisotenu utrumatenu upri kol eitz tirosh v'yitzar navila Kohanim elishkat beit Elokeinu umaser admatenu laleviyim v'hema leviyim ha'asrim b'chol arei avodotenu. Right, and then the last is that they're going to rededicate themselves basically to Truma and Maser, that any of the gifts that they were supposed to give to the Kohanim and the Levium, they will give again. Vaya Kohen ben Aharon im haLeviim ba'aser haLeviim va'Leviim yalu et Maser haMaser leveit Elokeinu et halishkot leveit Otzer. Right, and a priest has to be with the Levium when they collect the Maser, and the Levium will bring up the Maser of the Maser. Remember, the Levium took Trumat HaMaser. That's what it's referring to. Whatever Maser you gave the Levium, they needed to give a section of that to the Kohanim themselves, okay? And they would put that in the Beit HaTzer, to the storerooms of the treasury. Ki el halishkot yaviu b'nei Yisrael u'b'nei haLeviim et Trumat HaDagan hatirosh v'hayitzar v'sham kli hamikdash v'akohanim hamishartim v'ashorim hamishorim v'lo nazov at Beit Elokeinu. Right, and basically saying they're going to put all of this in the storerooms, and people will bring other gifts of grain and wine and oil and everything that they need to keep this new Beit HaMikdash up and running will be there, because lo na'azov et Beit Elokeinu. We won't forget our Beit Elokeinu. So I think we see two categories of laws here, right? The first category is these seven that we mentioned, right? These six that we mentioned of intermarriage, Shabbat, Shemitah, the shekel, the wood, and the bikurim, okay? And then the second half, which is the regular gifts that were supposed to be given to the temple, the truma and maser, okay? So that seems to be the two sort of areas where they sort of rededicate themselves in the shvuah that they take. So we can certainly understand the piece of the Truma and Master, right? Because that's just part of like sort of keeping the people who have to work in the Beit HaMikdash fed and giving them sustenance and, you know, and what they needed. We certainly can understand the eitzim, the wood and the shekel, because that also, and the bikurim is also part of the gifts, and the shekel and the eitzim are sort of, you know, that's also just part of how to keep the regular maintenance or, you know, just the regular activities of the Beit HaMikdash going. I think the prohibition against intermarriage and Shabbat and Shemitah are interesting, that those are sort of the three that were picked. And I think in a way what we're seeing here is sort of like what mitzvot are they picking to show of like how they're going to define themselves as Jews. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing here is the definition of a Jew is a little bit like not being part of the other nations, right? You're not going to marry with the other nations. Even the description of Shabbat. What's the description of Shabbat? It's that you're not doing business, right, with non-Jews. It's not like, when I think about like how I keep Shabbat, I don't think about that. Yes, part of it is I don't go to a store, but that's not how I would like characterize my Shabbat. And it's interesting that that's the characterization that's here as well. And Shemitah, right, that it says that we'll forgive all of the loans. Remember, what was one of the things that Nehemiah got very upset about in Perek Gimel? Is that he saw that what was happening?
They were being taxed.
They were taking advantage of the loans.
Right, that they were, right, that there were all these Jews who were being forced into slavery by other Jews. So to me, I think that's like almost like a social justice issue, right? Like that we're going to treat our poor differently than how the other nations are going to treat our poor. And so the way I interpret these first three mitzvot, you know, the first three are basically about, you know, defining ourselves as Jews in this new era, that we've had this period of diaspora, assimilation, we sort of became part of the other nations. And part of the Shivat Zion is not just about rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash and getting Korbanot going again, but it's also redefining ourselves as a nation. And what are those commitments we have to express that we're Jewish people? And I think that's how they're choosing to show that, by who they marry, keeping Shabbat, and keeping Shemitah. And then the other things like the shekel and the eights and the bikurim, again, those are sort of part of mitzvot, or I would say functions of how to keep the temple running, right? But you know, the first three I think are about defining ourselves as a nation outside of the temple itself. Any thoughts, questions? That's basically Perek Yud. Interesting Perek. This is all interesting, right?
Yeah, what they came back to do, you know, and they did this with, this is Nehemiah's describing this.
This is Nehemiah's describing this, right? Remember, Nehemiah always talks in the first person. And again, what I think is somewhat interesting is that sort of like, if I were going to pick like the set of mitzvot today of sort of like what defines an observant Jew, I don't know that you would pick Shemitah, you know? I don't even know that you would pick intermarriage, because people do convert today. And again, I think there's this odd tension in the whole Sefer itself between like, we see it in Ezra too, of sort of like not liking intermarriage, but yet at the same time acknowledging that people sort of, at least in this parak, somehow willingly, there were a group of people from Amei Ha'aratzot who came, right? I think today we would probably say kashrut would be an important one of how we define ourselves. So there's no mention of that. Taharat HaMishpacha, right, would be sort of one. So I think one of the things that's interesting to see, and not just in Ezra and Nehemiah, even when you go through Nevi'im, particularly in Treyasar, and I know some of us learned that together, is sort of seeing what's the focus on of like what are their defining mitzvot of what does it mean to be a Jewish person or to be part of the Jewish nation. Mm-hmm. And this wouldn't be the list that people would come up with today.
Right.
Even the definition of Shabbat. Right. To us, Shabbat, you know, feels different than this definition.
Right. So he's telling this in the third person and telling it to who? He's telling it in general?
It's just like to be recorded for posterity, you know,
and
so people know what happened.
And he's telling it to the people at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Or he's just stating it. Okay. Who at that point was the leader of the Jewish people?
It's Nehemiah, and again, the question if Ezra's living at this time or Ezra lived before.
So he's considered the leader of the Jewish people at that time in Eretz Israel.
Correct.
Okay.
Is it interesting, is he trying to make a point to those who are Jewish of how much these people who are converting are doing? In other words,
I'm
these
not
people
sure,
are
but
doing it
it's
of
clear
their
that
own
that-
volition.
that group commits themselves to this as well. Right? That group is committing themselves to the same standard.
So is he describing to that group what it would mean to be a Jew at that time?
No, I think what they're describing is this is the shvuah. This is an oath that they took and that they signed, you
Right.
know, of like what the recommitment of the Beit HaMikdash mean. Like, what does this Shivat Zion mean? And again, I
Okay.
think it's important to show it's not just a rededication of the temple, it's a rededication to the letter, to the law, right? To the Chukim and Mishpatim, as it says, right? But the presentation of the Chukim and Mishpatim has some nuance, has some difference than what appears in the Torah itself. And I think that's important. And again, is it just a rededication, or is this where we're sort of seeing the beginning of rabbinic Judaism, where we sort of see that the leaders, the sofer, the educated class, sort of tweaks a little bit what's in the Torah itself, or brings their own understanding or explanation to what some of these laws actually mean.